Welcome to this part 10 of this terrorist lecture series. In this lecture we will take Jammu and Kashmir insurgency. So how this Jammu and Kashmir became an insurgent movement, what was the role of Pakistan, and how other stuffs like your Punjab side, the Khalistan movement and all indulges in those insurgencies. So all those things we will discuss in this lecture, and how this Article 370 and all has been revoked we will see, and what are the impact after that revocation of that Article 370 we will see. So before moving ahead to this lecture, I will request you to please go through this lecture till the end so that you will have a complete picture of it. Further, I will request you to please subscribe this channel because this is new channel, so I really need your support. And this lecture will be a long lecture, so please be through it. If you want any break, pause it, then resume it again. Okay, so first we will see the introduction of this concept, like how this Jammu and Kashmir insurgency have started. Okay, so the root cause, like from where this Jammu and Kashmir issues happen, it is only because of the division of our country into two, that the bifurcation of the country India into India and Pakistan, and that's why also we saw the movements and all of the Khalistan issues and all. Okay, so the roots of the insurgency in the Jammu and Kashmir goes back till your year to the 1947, when we got the independence and when we have the bifurcation. Okay, so in 1947 India and Pakistan were granted independence by the British through the British India's Independence Act. So the Indian Independence Act provided the creation of what? Indian Dominion and the Pakistan Dominion. So two things was created, that was what one was your Indian Dominion and another is your Pakistan Dominion. Okay, now in this between your Jammu Kashmir issues will lie, because Pakistan will say Pakistan wants to occupy this region Jammu and Kashmir, and India wanted to occupy this region, but initially it was left aside. Jammu Kashmir was left aside. It was not included neither in the Pakistan nor in the India. It was as an independent territory. Okay, so the Indian Independence Act provided for the creation of the Indian Dominion and the Pakistan Dominion, and the princely states were given the option, that the princely states had an option, whether you want to join India, you can join to India. If you want to join Pakistan, you can join to Pakistan, or if you want to be remain independent, you can. Okay, so in that scenario Jammu and Kashmir chose to be an independent. Okay, so the Jammu and Kashmir was princely state ruled by whom? Raja Hari Singh, and he was a Hindu ruler ruling on the majority of the Muslim population. That was one of the key points you have to mention, that Raja Hari Singh decided to neither join to India nor Pakistan and decided to remain independent, considering it's a unique demography. Okay, so like Raja was the Hindu and the population was, majority of the population was Muslim. Okay, so the Kashmir was a Muslim majority state among a small Hindu population, and Muslim majority state was ruled by Hindu king, so called Raja Hari Singh decided to retain its sovereignty, not to join India, neither to join India nor Pakistan, will remain independent. So at this juncture Pakistan felt Raja Hari Singh might feel assist with the India and under the influence of the Indian government. So based on this perception of the Pakistan tried to prevent such outcome and believed it as a legitimate claim on the Muslim majority state. So what happened? So decision was given to the princely state, whether you want to join India, or you can join Pakistan, or you want to be independent. Okay, so these were the three conditions. So Raja Hari Singh opt to be remain independent. Now what happened? Raja Hari Singh was a Hindu ruler and the population was, the majority is Muslim. Okay, now what Pakistan felt, that Jammu and Kashmir may join in coming days, in the influence of India, may join to be assisted with India, like will join India after that. So Pakistan raised an issue that this Jammu and Kashmir region is a Muslim majority state, so all the right of on that region will be of Pakistan. So Pakistan will have a right to rule on the Muslim majority state, that is Jammu and Kashmir. So Jammu and Kashmir should be included within the Pakistan. That was the reason claimed by the Pakistan to occupy Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. So now we will move forward. What is the Pakistan strategy that they followed? So Pakistan then decided to occupy independent state, that Pakistan then decided to occupy the independent state of Jammu and Kashmir and sponsored the tribal militia backing with the armed forces to inflate Jammu and Kashmir. So it was like that Pakistan wanted to infiltrate the region with the tribal people's militias and their force also, their military force also, to infiltrate Jammu and Kashmir. So the objective was, what was the objective of the Pakistan? The objective of the Pakistan to overthrow that Hindu ruler, that is the Raja Hari Singh, to occupy the state by forcefully. Okay, as the claim was made by the Pakistan that this is a Muslim majority state, so it will come under the Pakistan region. Okay, so these tribal investors were backed by the Pakistan armed forces, managed to occupy large part of Jammu and Kashmir, and these pushed Raja Hari Singh to assistance to take India. So it was like when the Pakistan entered and it forced Raja Hari Singh to overthrow from the region. Then Raja Hari Singh didn't have any option. He came to India to give assistance. So Raja Hari Singh approached the Indian government for the assistance for the couple of issues. It was not the Indian government, it was the Raja Hari Singh own came for the Indian government for the assistance. Okay, so now what India said, so for India it would be difficult to deploy their troops in the Jammu and Kashmir region because it is an independent sovereign state. So let us suppose if India sent their troops into the Jammu and Kashmir region, so it was like how India will give reasons behind, like why I am going to that region, this is not a part of India. So it was difficult for India to infiltrate into that region which is an independent and sovereign. Okay, that was not a part of Indian Union. So India saw this an opportunity. Yes, Raja Hari Singh is coming to me for help. Raja Hari Singh coming to me for help to save him from Pakistan. So India saw this as an opportunity, and he said that if we want our help, you have to agree with our certain terms and conditions. What are the terms and conditions? We will see. Okay, so India saw this as an opportunity to integrate the Jammu and Kashmir into Indian Union. So India promised, yes, I will help you, I will give you assistance to Raja Hari Singh based on only one condition. What was the condition? Indian government said that they are willing to deploy their troops to defend Raja Hari Singh and its princely estate from Pakistan invaders, provided if the Raja Hari Singh agrees to hand over Jammu and Kashmir to the Indian Union by signing the instrument of accession. Okay, so instrument of accession like in the Sikkim and all. So same in that case, India said you have to sign instrument of accession and this Jammu and Kashmir will be included into the Indian Union, then I will be ready to help you. Because India saw this opportunity as an helper, like Raja Hari Singh is own, he is coming to help. I will help you. You are a sovereign state. I can't send my troops to your sovereign state. If you are adding this state into the Indian Union, then I will help you, because then that state, that region will be treated as the Indian states. Okay, so after the signing of the instrument of accession, Jammu and Kashmir became the integral part of the India. So Raja Hari Singh then decided to sign the instrument of accession, and thus it became an integral part of India. And immediately India deployed troops to defend the Pakistan invasion, and this is how first war of India and Pakistan began. Okay, so during this conflict, India managed, in that it was like that most of the part was also taken by the Pakistan side, and we also have our Jammu and Kashmir, and the region that is to the Pakistan area, the Jammu and Kashmir region that has been occupied by the Pakistan, has been named as the Azad Kashmir by Pakistan side. For Pakistan, that region is called as an Azad, that is the free Kashmir from India, if we say from the Pakistan side. Okay, and still from our side we used to call it as a Pakistan occupied Kashmir. that Pakistan has illegally occupied our region. So that is a dispute. So during this conflict, India managed to retake Jammu and few parts of the Kashmir and Ladakh, whereas Pakistan managed to hold on a large part of Jammu and Kashmir, which was later referred as an Azad Kashmir and the Gilgit Baltistan. So at this point, UN, as this so much tussles and ushles was going on for this Jammu and Kashmir region, so UN decided to intervene and ceasefire, and they forced to ceasefire agreement. At that time, you will see that Operation Prakram will happen in 1919. At that also army standoff happened at that time. So it is after that. I think 40 years after the ceasefire agreement and all. So at that point, when this Kashmir should happen, like when the Pakistan occupied its own Kashmir and India occupied its own Kashmir, at that time UN decided to intervene because it is a condition, because war kind of situation is happening at that time. So at this point, UN decided to intervene and the ceasefire agreement was signed between India and Pakistan. Though this ceasefire, both the sides agreed to hold on the respective forces and de facto boundary was drawn, that is your LOC, that is your line of control. And what is the border with the China? Line of actual control, LAC for the China, and Pakistan is LOC. So LOC represents the temporary boundary between India and Pakistan in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Remember, it is a temporary boundary. Why? Because the Pakistan occupied Kashmir is still a part of India. Gilgit Baltistan is still a part of India. Okay. So Jammu and Kashmir, until the conflict, the permanently resolved. So till now we have a temporary border, that is a LOC. So both India and Pakistan are supposed to hold plebiscite. So it was happened that then India and Pakistan agreed to call of a plebiscite. What do you understand by plebiscite? Plebiscite is nothing but people of that region will be asked to cast vote. Cast vote. And what do you understand by casting vote? Casting vote will be that they will have two options where they want to join. In that, Pakistan will be an option and India will be an option. Okay, so if the majority of the people wanted to join India, so the plebiscite will be like India won the plebiscite. If the majority of the people want to join Pakistan, then plebiscite will be like Pakistan won the plebiscite. Okay, so what happened? So both India and Pakistan agreed to hold a plebiscite for that Jammu and Kashmir region. Okay, this was agreed, but after that Pakistan felt that India is going to win that plebiscite, because most of the people were in the favor of India. So what happened? Now what is the game in this plebiscite? In the plebiscite the game will be of people. Okay, how much people will vote in the favor of India and Pakistan. Now what happened? Pakistan tried to change the demography of that region. Demography means Pakistan tried to change the population of the region present in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Pakistan started to pump the outsider into that region. So what will happen? Outsider will be who? That is the Pakistan people. Now number of Pakistani people in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir and the other regions will be more. Okay, so the population will increase of the Pakistan side, and when the population will increase, it means what? They obviously they are Pakistani people, so they will vote in the favor of Pakistan only. So Pakistan started to change the demography of that region, and when the plebiscite will take place, then the plebiscite will fall into the favor of who? Fall in the favor of Pakistan. And that India noticed. India was watching all those things, and after that India cancelled the plebiscite option, because India knew that the Pakistan is changing the demography of that region. Okay, so this was all about the plebiscite. So I will explain it here. So both the India are supposed to hold the plebiscite, which is form a direct election, and through such a plebiscite people of Jammu and Kashmir were supposed to give the option either to join India, Pakistan, or remain independent. But this plebiscite never held, because Pakistan bringing the terms of ceasefire agreement into that, and Pakistan changed the demography of the Pakistan occupied Kashmir region, changed the population of that region, so that the number of vote falling into that area will increase. So even if plebiscite, the election will go into the favor of Pakistan. So India, which was watching these developments, were refused to hold plebiscite on its on its side, Pakistan had broke the agreement by altering the demography of the POK. Okay, and this plebiscite never happened. So once Jammu and Kashmir became the part of the Indian Union, India decided to honor its commitment by providing the special provision to protect the rights of the Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so once it became the Indian Union, so India said we will give you a special that protection and the rights to the Jammu and Kashmir, and so that you will not feel any neglection kind of things, you will not feel neglected. And also because of that, it is being joined by the India, and there is so tussles going between India and Pakistan to make some a profit side, to make some feel worthy to the people. So it was like India gives some of the rights, a special right to the Jammu and Kashmir people. So Raja Hari Singh, when signed the instrument of accession, he transferred the power only in the areas of defense. What are the areas he transferred the power? He transferred the power in the area of defense, external affairs, and the communications. So why? Because the war, if it is going to take place, as the India infiltrate into that region and he fought with the Pakistan, it was like the defense armies and all were infiltrated into that region. So the control was given in the area of defense, external affairs, and the communication to the government of India. Rest of the other areas was still in the favor of Raja Hari Singh. So India fulfilled its commitment that Raja Hari Singh, that we want independence on that you take defense, external affair, and communication. After the water will be there, it should be like for the Jammu and Kashmir people only. So India fulfilled its commitment to Jammu and Kashmir by giving a special provision through implementing Article 370, which has been revoked in the year 2019. So Article 370 was given to Jammu and Kashmir people, and this article got its own constituent assembly and right to draft its own constitution. So the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir was different from the India. They had its own constitution, they had their own flag and all. Okay, they had their own time period of the legislation assembly, that was of around 6 years. Okay, so later Indian government introduced another article in the constitution, that was Article 350A. Article 370 was introduced and Article 350A in order to protect the property rights. So it was like that no outsider can go into that region and buy property. Further, if a daughter is married outside the Jammu and Kashmir, so her right will be not on land. Okay, so that was some condition that was given in the Article 335A. So in order to protect the property rights and the other privilege, the permanent residents of the Jammu and Kashmir. So Article 35A provided the definition of the permanent residents, and article provided that these special provisions under which Jammu and Kashmir became the integral part of the India. But Pakistan always cautioned the Jammu and Kashmir region as per Pakistan it is an illegal accession, as Raja Hari Singh was under what Pakistan claimed, that Raja Hari Singh was undistressed, he was in pressure, he does not have any armies and all, so he went to India for the help. That's what the claim of the Pakistan. But who kept Raja Hari Singh in distress? It was Pakistan only. Then why are you claiming that Raja Hari Singh was in distress and he went to India help? You made Raja Hari Singh to be in pressure. You pressurized Raja Hari Singh, and that's why Raja Hari Singh came to in the favor of India. Okay, so that is the claim of Pakistan due to in pressure, and this Raja Hari Singh was forced to sign with the India. But it is not like that. You only kept you made Raja Hari Singh to be in pressurized. You pressurized the Raja Hari Singh. So as Raja Hari Singh was under distress when he was forced to sign the instrument of accession, and on these grounds Pakistan continued to question India's legitimacy over the state of Jammu and Kashmir, since it is always been desired to Pakistan to liberate Jammu and Kashmir from India. So it is like from starting only the main motive of the Pakistan is to liberate Jammu and Kashmir from India. So from 1947 to 1987, Pakistan had made a few attempts to de-establish the Jammu and Kashmir region in order to liberate from India, like radicalizing the youth of that region by giving trainings and all, by moving them from safe havens, like from Nepal they used to give trainings to all the people, and they created Indian Mujahideen and all. The training, the safe route, that for the safe route for taking away those youth from India is Nepal route only. So later, between 1987 and 1989, Pakistan started unleashing a wave of jihadi terrorism and cross-border terrorism against India in order to liberate Jammu and Kashmir. The attempts made by Pakistan between 1947 and 87 did not give the desired result because the right condition did not exist for the mass insurgency movement against the government of India. Further, the large majority of the people were in the favor of Indian government only. Thus, Pakistan failed in making such action because the people, most of the majority of the people were in the favor of India. Okay. So, how ISI exploited Jammu and Kashmir issues? So, it is a long part. I think 4 and 5 parts will be there. All things we are going to discuss. So there were genuine root causes in the Jammu and Kashmir conflict initially, but the ISI has exploited these events in order to provoke conflict. Important reasons were, so it is that ISI, that state agency, that is the Pakistan agency, took too much interest in creating such conflict for the Jammu and Kashmir region. So, but it should not happen like that, because a state agency should not involve in making a non-state agency. So, state agency means what? ISI, and he is helping in creation of the Indian Mujahideen, and also that is the non-state agencies. So, this happens only in Pakistan. So the people of Jammu and Kashmir felt alienated from the government of India. Yes, here you will see that where we were failed. So we failed in making development into that region. What happened actually? Our Indian government alienated, that stopped that kind of development in that region. So development was stopped for that region. It was like that. If we compare the development of the mainland India, and the development of the Jammu and Kashmir region was very less. Job opportunities, development of the infrastructure, medical facilities and all was very bad for the Jammu and Kashmir if we compare that from the mainland India. And same situation happened with the northeast insurgency issues and all. The development in the eastern part of India was very less as compared with the mainland India, and thus this led to the emergence of northeast insurgency movement and all. And similarly, this situation happened for the Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so the people of Jammu and Kashmir felt alienated from the government of India. The people of a state believed that there were lack of inclusion, growth and the development. So the development for that region and the inclusion growth was very less as compared with the mainland India. So this was attributed to the bad governance and the poor administration, and the rest of the India was developing at a very large extent, and Jammu and Kashmir was still at a very low pace. So this saw the Jammu and Kashmir as the security, and because what is the issue, they even noticed that the government of India is looking Jammu and Kashmir only with the security perspective, that they infiltrated the region with the military peoples and all. They are protecting the borders with the Pakistan and all, and nothing has been developed apart from that. The no infrastructure development, no good medical facilities, no schools, no good schools and all have been given to that region. So the people of Jammu and Kashmir has marked all those development, that the development as compared with the mainland India was very poor, and government of India take Jammu and Kashmir with respect to the security angle only. So they mainly focus on the ensuring the security of the state and countering Pakistan terror activities, and does not went into the favor of the people. They do not think in the development, they do not took any decision in the favor of development of the people for that region. So they failed to, Indian government failed to create economic infrastructure in the state. So this neglect the lack of development for nearly 4 decades, that is a 40 years, nearly 40 years, this has been neglected and destroyed the faith of the people of in the Indian government. And laterally, if you are ignoring the people, if you are ignoring the development of that region, if you are ignoring the economic activities into that region, if you are neglecting the medical facilities, schools, teachers and all, what will happen? People will lose the faith in you, and that only happened in the Jammu and Kashmir, and people lose the faith in the Indian government. So there was a wide perception within the people of Jammu and Kashmir as they were not enjoying the genuine democracy in their state as enjoyed by the rest of India. They noticed that yes, the kind of democracy that the people of India, that the mainland people of India is enjoying, we are not enjoying. And many of times government of India snatched democratic rights as well due to imposition of the presidency rule or lockdowns and all. So 344 and articles, everything that was going to be imposed. So government snatched democratic rights in the name of the national security. Even the basic rights to protect had been curtailed. So thus this created the divide between the people of Jammu and Kashmir and the government of India, and that was witnessed during the 1947 and 1987, as the most of the people not were in the favor of the government of India because they feel alienated by the government of India's act as the lack of development of that region. Okay, so the perception of the people that state politics is dominated by, and one more issue for the people was that the state politics is dominated by one political party from the same family, that is the Abdullah family. So it was like that they noticed that the only one political party is ruling the Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, that is the Abdullah family, and it is referring to the National Conference and Abdullah family. So Sheikh Abdullah and its party National Conference had played a very crucial role in integration of Jammu and Kashmir into the Indian Union. So what is telling that the integration of the Jammu and Kashmir into what? Into Indian Union. Who played the critical role? This Abdullah family created the very critical role in integration of Indian Union. So that's why government of India always have a bend towards this Abdullah family. Okay, and these people do not like, because it is domination. It is like what, no democracy, only one family is ruling the country. So due to this, as they helped in Jammu and Kashmir in the integration of Indian Union, so thus Sheikh Abdullah enjoyed a good relationship with the Indian government. So further backing with the center, he became the chief minister of the state as well. But within a few years, their party and him raising demand for a self-rule of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So what happened? He became the chief minister of that region, and after that he himself started to demand that make the Jammu and Kashmir an independent one. So this created the conflict between the National Conference headed by the Sheikh Abdullah and the government of India. Government of India made you the CM. Okay, you helped in integration of the Jammu and Kashmir with the Indian Union. Now you are asking for making it an independent. It is not acceptable. So whenever such conflict rose up in the state, center would defend. Whenever such conflict happened, what center do? Center, India is a what kind of country? India is a kind of a quasi-federal. Okay, what happened in the quasi-federal? Central government have a power. Our country is a federal country, but if there is a risk on the security and the threat, our country will act as a unitary form of government. And that's what happened in this scenario, that whenever such kind of conflicts happen, Indian government removes the state government and presidency rule used to be imposed. So when such conflicts, center would dismiss the state government and impose the president of governors rule. So such steps shaken the faith of the people of the Indian constitution. So people felt very confused that Indian government make Sheikh Abdullah as the chief minister. There's the one family only ruling it, and after that you want to rule that one family only, and this one family wants to make it an independent state. After that India used to make a presidential rule. So this kind of shaking of the rules of the government created a confusion within the people of the India, and people of Jammu and Kashmir lose the faith in the Indian constitution. But despite this conflict, Indian government were heavily dependent upon the National Conference. Okay, these kind of conflicts were happening, but despite of that, Indian government were dependent upon the Sheikh Abdullah families and all. So as all other party leaders were seemed to be pro-Pakistan, it was like that he was either in the favor of India or make a independent state. So only two options was with him. He was not in the favor to go to the Pakistan, but all the other leaders were pro-Pakistan. Okay, so that's why Indian government always used to choose the Sheikh Abdullah and all. Okay, so later in the 1980s, Farooq Abdullah, who was the son of this Sheikh Abdullah, would take over, and this was widely resisted by the people of Jammu and Kashmir. People of Jammu and Kashmir were do not like this political party ruling from the same family. So on one side, people were already upset due to the lack of development and the inclusive growth, and on the other hand they were frustrated with the domination of the state within one family. This created a lots of constraint for the 1985. So it was like, on one hand you are not making such development, schools are not there, hospitals are not there, and other side you are again making the one of the family members as a ruling party, that the that people were not liking it. So by 1987, when the state election was scheduled to be held, people were eagerly waiting for the National Conference Party to the out of power. But surprisingly, National Conference won the election, and the Farooq Abdullah came into the power. And election resulted to the widespread allegation to the Indian government that Indian government have manipulated this result. Okay, so India reaped the election in the favor of National Conference. The allegation that the Indian government has spread far and wide, this became the immediate trigger of the frustration between the people, and were held for last few decades and brought on the street in the form of violent protest. So this made a violent protest on the road. So this situation was promptly exploited. Now the Pakistan is looking this violent protest as an opportunity for them. So they started recruiting those local youth that were frustrated with the Indian government. They started to recruit that local youth, and they started to use those local youth in the against of India, and they started to hire like in the form of Indian Mujahideen and all. So with the Indian government into the very Indian Mujahideen formed after your IC 814 hijack. So it is like after many years, after 20 years after that, this Indian Mujahideen happened, but it is just a result of that only. They hired those youth, that is a war victim kind of youth. They hired those and they formed the Indian Mujahideen and all. So Indian government into the proxy war terrorist established for this purpose. So during the mid 1980s, Pakistan was already playing a very crucial role in supporting the Afghan Mujahideen. So in that 1980s, that Pakistan was already playing in Afghan Mujahideen, that supporting of the Afghan Mujahideen, that Afghanistan-based Mujahideen in the insurgent war against the Soviet occupation of the Afghanistan. That in the 1991 Soviet Union was breakdown. So in that Pakistan was indulged with the help of USA, Western countries and all. So the Pakistan was considered as a close alliance of the USA and the Saudi Arabia. These countries were channeling the large scale of funds and weapons to the Pakistan. Okay, so these countries were sending large funds, so the Pakistan would support Afghan Mujahideen against the Soviet Union, and thus they were not considering the Pakistan agenda against India. So Pakistan was using that money, weapons also against the India at that time, and thus USA was not caring for them, because USA was against the Soviet Union, and thus India was always being attacked. Okay, so now, so the Pakistan set up various anti-India outfits. First, it set up a proxy war in the state of Punjab. First, it set up a proxy war in the state of Punjab by sponsoring the Khalistan movement, and since the late 1970s, and later it opened a new affront towards the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so they made the sponsorship lots of terrorism kind of thing. So it was one of your Khalistan movement issue, that when the Punjab was bifurcated into two due to the division of the India into two regions, that is India and Pakistan, that led to the development of the Khalistan movement. So the ISA started infiltrating Mujahideen fighters from the Afghanistan to the Jammu and Kashmir, and the responsibility was not only to carry the terror attack but also to recognize the youth frustrated by the government of India. It was like they were exploiting those youth that were frustrated by the government of India, like due to the lack of jobs and all. So once such youth were identified, they were radicalized and they would not be taken across the border. They started to take across the border LOC, and they started to train them and cause an attack into the India. So they could train in the terror camps where ISI was operating. So Pakistan exploited this inner fault line where the Indian youth were against the government of India from 1980s, and started promoting the large scale infiltration from the across border in order to carry out the insurgency in the state. So the insurgent were mixed foreign fighters from Afghanistan, as well as few local youth were also radicalized. So it was like that they were radicalizing the local people to against the India, and the local people were not in the support of India. So thus they radicalized them, and their primary target was the government forces and minority in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So minority will be like your Pandits. So that Pandits who were forced to move from that region. So the wave of insurgency was started out by carrying out the ethnic minority targeting Kashmiri Pandits, and due to threat of violence, Kashmiri Pandits fled from the Kashmir in large number. Further, Indian government failed against such campaign. Okay, this failure of the Indian government against the protection of Kashmir essentially legitimized the action of insurgents. Until date, Kashmiri Pandits have not been able to return to their own home, and it is one of the largest human right violation of the state. After this violation started to increase in the state, so this was one of the largest human right violations that happened in our history, for that, especially for that state, that is your Jammu and Kashmir, and still it is a news, and every time we used to see in those news and all. Various movies have been also made. Okay, so in 1990, the violence of the state and attacks on the government security forces and the officials were increased. Ultimately, AFSPA was also introduced, and it is a very strict force where they were allowed to kill, shoot at sight order. They want to do what they want, and this was also become one of the major drawback for the Indian government, because many human rights violations have been taken place. There were claims when AFSPA was introduced in the northeastern part of our country. There was claim of the rapes and all. Also, this kind of news came into the public media forum, and the kind of strictness that used to follow that came against the human right violation. So that was problem with the introduction of the AFSPA. So this legislation provided special power to the security forces, through which they joined a license to kill, arrest suspect without warrant, detain suspect for indefinite period, and powers given to whom were very crucial. What kind of power? It helped them to counter the counter-insurgency operation. Further, it also created the human right violations. So the power that was given to them was crucial in the sense that they were given the order to shoot and shoot. They did not need order from the governments and all. They were like, you have to just counter the insurgency operation and you do whatever you want to do. So in 1998, both the countries tested their nuclear weapon. In 1999, Kargil war took place and hijacking of the IC-814 happened, that I talked in the previous slide. Later in 2001, Indian Parliament was attacked by whom? Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Jaish-e-Mohammed was formed by the one of the terrorists that was released in the exchange of hostages in the IC-814. So India responded. So I have made a video of that also. This will be covered in your part 11, that is the next part of this lecture. So India responded to these attacks by mobilizing its troops through Operation Prakram, and Operation Prakram resulted in the India's one of the failure operations also. So it was like within 24 to 48 hours it was like within the 24 to 48 hours it was like that Indian troops should be deployed on the Pakistan border, but it did not happen. They took around the 6 months, and this Pakistan used at opportunity, and Pakistan also put their military officials on the border. So thus India failed in that Prakram operations as well, and it has been discussed in the next lecture. You will see that will be in the part 11. These things have been discussed. Okay, so this further created tension in the state. So Pakistan has nurtured various terror groups like Al-Qaeda and Taliban were initially not the major threat for India. It was because the activities of this group were mainly targeting the Western countries. Their activities were further limited to Afghanistan in the initial years, but instead of much bigger threat was imposed by the Kashmir-centric terror groups and nurtured by the Pakistan, directly assisted by the ISI and even activities. So these include your Hizbul Mujahideen, Harkatul Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba. Okay, so militancy in the Jammu and Kashmir, which was its peak during 1989 to 2003, was slightly reduced by signing of the ceasefire agreement. So the ceasefire agreement was signed. It was forced by the USA and all, as the both army was standing in front of it. As during the Operation Prakram, both the armies were standoff happened, and due to and both the countries are nuclear countries. So due to international pressure, they were forced, both India and Pakistan was forced to sign the ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan in 2003, and this for a few period of time this proved to be a helpful, where trade and started to happen between Pakistan, but again Pakistan started to violate the ceasefire agreement and all. So this for the formal ceasefire not only reduced the border clashes between the two nations and further pushed the Pakistan to take action on some of the outfits nurtured on their soil, and further pressurized it was pressurized by the USA as well, because on the USA was attacked on 2001 on its World Trade Center, okay, by Osama bin Laden, so leadered by the Osama bin Laden. So by 2001 USA has already carried out invasion of Pakistan under Operation Enduring Freedom in order to target the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. So the US required Pakistani security forces to pay complete attention to the Pakistan and the Pakistan border. Hence USA was putting pressure on both India and Pakistan to reduce the tension, as this would compromise the India war on terrorism. So see, it was like that USA wanted to attack on the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, okay, and Pakistan was helping those things. Now whenever the tension used to emerge, what Pakistan used to do, Pakistan used to attack on India. Those insurgents, the violation of the ceasefire agreement used to do Pakistan. Why? To divert the attention of the international forum to India from this Al-Qaeda and Taliban, to save Al-Qaeda and Taliban. This was the strategy of Pakistan. See what, like again I will explain. USA want to counter this Al-Qaeda and Taliban, and Al-Qaeda and Taliban were getting support from Pakistan, okay, and to divert the attention of the international forum, Pakistan used to attack on India. So what happens when the Pakistan will violate the ceasefire agreement, it will say that India has attacked first and all, and so that due to this russell and tussles between the Pakistan and India, the international attention will be diverted from this Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and this was the strategy of the Pakistan that they used to follow. So the US required Pakistani security for the pay attention to the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, so hence USA was putting the nation, America wasn't, okay. So the involvement of Pakistan in the American war has become highly unpopular among the radical section of the Pakistani society, as well as the terror groups, and Pakistan had nurtured. So the Pakistan had cultivated radical jihadis outfit among the terror groups, and they considered the Western countries to be their primary target. So it was like that. See, Pakistan had its own radical jihadist outfits, and their target were Western countries, okay. Now USA was coming for the help from the Pakistan. Now these jihadis was thinking, you trained us to attack on the Western countries, and now you are taking help from the USA to counter us only. So this is not supported. This jihadi outfit was not supported, and that's what happened. They used to divert the attention of the Indian international forum. So jihadi among the terror groups, as they considered the Western countries to be the primary target. So their primary target was the Western countries. Western countries means what? USA, UK and all. So this puts Pakistan in the state of dilemma. As one side, it had promoted radical jihadi ideology among the various terror outfits and are completely motivated to target the Western countries. They were motivated to target the Western countries, that is the USA, Canada and all. And simultaneously, Pakistan was forced by the Western countries to work along with them in order to target very same radical jihadis outfit. How is this possible? On one side, you are getting help to kill those people, and another side you are training the same people to attack on those Western countries. It is not acceptable. So thus terror outfits like Lashkar-e-Taiba, just Lashkar-e-Mohammed were extremely upset with the Pakistani security forces when they were actively assisting the Americans and the other Western countries to target the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. So whenever Pakistan jumbled with such dilemma, Pakistan deliberately increased the tension with the India in order to divert the attention of the international media forum. Okay, so to target the radical jihadist outfit, the other terror groups which sympathizes with them were retaliate against the deep in state of Pakistan, which were represented by the ISI and the Pakistani army. So during such tension between the deep state of Pakistan and the other terror outfits, Pakistan had tried to deflect the attention by deliberately increasing the tension with the India, so that it can divert its troops from the Afghanistan border to Indian border. So it was like that, to divert the attention of the international forum to the Indian border. So thus it would compromise the American efforts in Afghanistan, and hence US exerted great pressure on both India and Pakistan to destabilize those facts, because the USA want to target those Al Qaeda and the Taliban. So the US exerted great pressure on both India and Pakistan to slightly normalize the relation by signing the ceasefire agreement, and after that, too many times ceasefire has been violated by the Pakistan. The signing of this agreement slightly made improvement between the India relation and the Pakistan. As a result, the Pakistan was forced to sign support from the Kashmir senator. This brought down the scale of infiltration violence between the 2003 to 10. But within few years, Pakistan violated the ceasefire agreement. Even today, Pakistan continues to violate the ceasefire agreement, and it went on to support few alternative groups in order to spread terrorism across India. Like they started to violate those regions to infiltrate the people, the terror groups into India from that route. So this is when we witnessed the expansion of pan-India terrorism, and especially between the 2004 to 9, Pakistan was forced to reduce its involvement in Jammu and Kashmir. So as a result of promoted the same outfits like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish, and even created other alternative groups to expand the pan-India terrorism. So at that time only, after the signing of the ceasefire and the violation of the ceasefire, the pan-India terrorism started from the Pakistan side. So multiple Indian cities were targeted during the period of Lashkar-e-Taiba, Indian Mujahideen, and few other terror outfits sponsored by the Pakistan. So as Pakistan was forced to scale down its proxy war from Jammu and Kashmir instead of expanding its proxy war to other parts of the India. So it was like that. In starting, it was not to attack the innocent civilian, but after the training of the Indian Mujahideen and all, they changed its path to attack innocent civilians. Okay, and after 2013, India, like it was happened when the innocent civilians were attacked, India started to give proof that it has been attacked by the Pakistan. So international pressures used to happen on the Pakistan, and due to this, Pakistan changed its strategy, and instead of attacking the innocent civilians, they started to attack the military officials, because military officials will not get that much of sympathy if we attack as compared with the innocent civilians. So it is like that Pakistan used to change their strategy over a period of time. Okay, so Indian security forces and the governments were also working on to reduce such infiltration and the violence. The scale of infiltration and violence was increased after 2010. So after 2010, it was increased, and last 6 to 7 years before removing Article 370, Pakistan had promoted stone pelting and riots in order to create the greater destabilization in the Jammu and Kashmir. And post 2009, especially in 2014, like then after, it was like each member was used to be paid for stone pelting, like 500 per day they were paid for stone pelting on the people, for the on the government officials and all. So these kind of a strategy used to be followed by the Pakistan. So there are three different phases that happen in our Indian history. One is 1989 to 2003. So a state witnessed the birth of insurgency on the sustained basis of 1989. The scale of violence went up in the 1990s to 2003. Then 2003 to 2020, due to signing of the ceasefire agreement, changes in the geopolitical approach of the government, there was slight decrease in the insurgency between this period, and they started to attack on the military officials and all. And we will see that in the 2019 that your Article 370 will be revoked from that region as well, and India will that will become the part of the India as a union territory. So the 2010 to 14 to 2009, massive increase in the scale of violence and the mass protests like the stone pelting and against the Indian security forces has been observed. Okay, so now the mitigating the efforts of the, like how to mitigate the reduce the part of efforts on the part of government of India until 2010. So the government of India adopted a multi-pronged approach in order to counter Jammu and Kashmir insurgency. In the part of multi-pronged strategy, there were three pillars. What were the three pillars? Political, security, and development of the administration in fronts. So government of India noticed that due to the lack of the development of that region, we are facing all those issues. So they started to focus on the political, security issues and the development of the administration reforms, like the government office and all. So the government of India had recognized there are genuine root cause that had not been addressed. They noticed, yes, there is a lack of development, there is no good schools and all. So due to this, yes, these are the issues that have not been addressed for the Jammu and Kashmir people. They noticed it, and further government had recognized the impact of the draconian rule through security forces in Jammu and Kashmir, draconian rule, that the old rule that is being followed for the Jammu and Kashmir people. But at the same time, government was also focused on the development issues. So security forces are always deployed with the modern weapons in order to counter operations. So it was like that, whatever the devices that were given to them, that was based on the modern weapons and counter insurgency operations, and drones and satellites are used to check with real times. So whatever the drones and satellites were used, it was like that they will have a live cameras and all. They started to use the drones to see where the to check the security issues related regions. Okay, so drones and satellites are used to check the real times regions. So implementation of series of comprehensive confidence building measures, not only with the Jammu and Kashmir but also with the Pakistan, was taken to overcome the feeling of the alienation of the people of the Jammu and Kashmir. So it is like that. See, so government noticed, yes, the infrastructure is the issue, job is the issue. Now government has started to give attention for all those issues. So implementation of the series of comprehension of confidence building measures, not only with the Jammu and Kashmir, also with the Pakistan, was taken to overcome the feeling of alienation to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So from the Pakistan side also, the India was trying to make some good relations, but they failed, and it was designated to facilitate people to people contact between residents and Jammu and Kashmir as those of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So India was giving its news from the news channels on. It was like the Pakistan occupied Kashmir people should also watch all those things, and they will also feel that yes, if we come with the India, we will be in good condition. So that kind of India was also playing development so that the people mindset will change in the favor of India. The initiatives were taken to reunite separate families from both the sides of the border by opening the Srinagar, Muzaffarabad and Poonch Rawalkot bus services. It was started by the from the both the regions for the India also. So in 2008, India and Pakistan enabled cross LOC trade by enabling the barter trade system of the local goods. And another example of this cross border and the barter trade system and all. So India provided massive help during the earthquake. So when earthquake happened in the Jammu and Kashmir regions, for Pakistan side also, India come in front of them and helped them. Okay, so in 2000, so separatist leader of the Jammu and Kashmir LM were also invited to engage in a political dialogue for all the sections of the examples of the all the sections of the society in Jammu and Kashmir. The 3 member of the committee was drawn from the civil society and consisted of Dilip Padgaonkar, Ansari and the Radha Kumari, and they were given the task to engage with all the sections of the society of the Jammu and Kashmir. Even they tried to come in the contact with the Pakistan occupied Kashmir as well. So this commitment submitted the report of the government, but then the government did not take any action on that, and this highlighted a few initiatives. So some of the development initiatives that were taken. So the Prime Minister reconstruction plan for Jammu and Kashmir was started in the 2004, especially in the conflicted affected areas. As a part of this plan, compensation will also be provided the victim of the violence. So it was like that, let us suppose someone's father was died in that in any riots, and also it was like that they will give compensation to those people as well. So that kind of initiative was taken so that they will make the Jammu and Kashmir people in the favor of India. So under the Himayat scheme, skill development and employment generation was provided to the youth to channelize the energy since 2012, and main objective was to provide vocal training and find job, did not just in Jammu and Kashmir but also outside of it. So provide for connectivity in Srinagar and Jammu and Kashmir, all weather connectivity, that is the Atal Tunnel project that has been completed recently in the year 2020, and the railway infrastructure and the airfields was also been renovated and reactivated to provide better connectivity, and government also focused on the tourism industry in the Jammu and Kashmir. This will help in the generation of good revenue, and tourism had been also improved from the insurgency state as reduced. As the insurgency has been reduced, tourism sector also improved for that Jammu and Kashmir region. So what the development took under the Modi government? So it was like Modi government said that we will not have a talk with the Hurriyat. So they stopped talking with the Hurriyat. So in case to talk to call of talk with the Hurriyat. That was the first agenda of the Modi government. So Hurriyat, who is Hurriyat? Hurriyat is a political, religious and social organization which was established in 1993 to represent the united political front for the cause of Kashmir separatism. Now see what happened. See, Hurriyat was like they also had a connection from the Pakistan, and they have a control for the major part of the region of the Kashmir. India was like, every time India used to connect with them, every time India was like they want to connect with them for the ruling, for the issues, for resolving the issues of the Kashmir. So Modi government said, why we are taking this as a mediator? We should come in front of them. We will handle all those things by alone. We don't need any mediator like the Hurriyat. Okay, so it was formed by bringing the various separatists together in order to present the united political front. So they also have a connection with the ISI of Pakistan, and Pakistan also recognized the Hurriyat as a legitimate stakeholder in the Kashmir conflict. Okay, so previous Indian government also recognized that Hurriyat as one of the legitimate stakeholder in the Kashmir issue, that Manmohan Singh and the Vajpayee government. And they have a channel, they always had a kept a channel, open channel with them. So the channel of communication with the Hurriyat were able to check on military violence and protest, because the government of India enjoys some kind of connection with the leaders of the Hurriyat conference. So government of India always also had a connection with the Hurriyat. Okay, and with connection with them, government of India used to control all the violence and all. So that's why government of India also leaned towards them, and they also had a connection with ISI. So it was like that some of the leaders have a connection with the ISI, and some of the leaders of them have a connection with the India, and that's why India was bended towards it, because they have a control on the major population of the Kashmir. So having the so this channel of communication led to the government of India to address some of the genuine demand of the local people, and it was helping India to engage in negotiation with the separatist faction. But this had its own advantage and disadvantage, like the India is dependent upon the Hurriyat. So the advantage was that Indian government could curtail the Pakistan influence with the separatist leader, and could also carry out negotiations in order to work out political resolution in conflict. But what was the disadvantage? But the disadvantage was that India was legitimizing the separatist leader by giving them recognition as a stakeholder in Jammu and Kashmir. We are also taking you as a stakeholder for the Jammu and Kashmir. This is a disadvantage. India, this is a sovereign country. India is a sovereign country. Why we are dependent upon Hurriyat, who is not any Indian constitution related stuffs or officials, government officials? No. So these talks with Hurriyat had played a role in the bringing down in the violence of Kashmir between 2003 to 10. But post 2010, Pakistan also started encouraging the cross-border infiltration, promoting the violent protest in the state area. So when Modi government came, they said, we will not take talk with the Hurriyat. When Modi government took over in 2004, it immediately adopted a hardline approach and called off talk with the Hurriyat conflict. So the advantage of this hardline approach is that it has de-recognized separatist outfit as a stakeholder in Kashmir, that they de-recognize Hurriyat does not have any stakeholder in the Kashmir issues. It is a sovereign, it is a part of Indian Union, and we will take care of it. It was a stand by the Modi government. So but the drawback is that it had increased the Pakistan influence on the separatist leader, and also reduced the leverage of India, and it is countering radicalization. So it was like that the most of the leaders of the Hurriyat went into the favor of the Pakistan. Okay, so militants and the violent protests in Jammu and Kashmir, this also takes away of the opportunity to work out of the political solution. So the Modi government had extended this hardline approach to counter insurgency operation, and also had extended the deal with the ceasefire violation by the Pakistan, and to deal with the incident of stone pelting, and we tackle it very efficiently. And after that we revoked the article 370 and all 350A. So it is very important to adopt a softer approach to deal with the local people to involved in stone pelting and violent protest. Over the last 9 years, Pakistan had deliberately funded to carry out the stone pelting. It was like the 500 rupees per person was paid for stone pelting and for per day. So violent protest to disrupt counter insurgency after carried by the Indian armed forces. So see, for stone pelting, youth were paid 500 per day. Whose failure is this? It is a failure of Indian government only. You haven't provided them jobs, and due to the lack of jobs, they are doing these kind of jobs. For 500 rupees they are pelting on the Indian soldiers. So it is the failure of an Indian government only, and that's what after Modi government took action on it. So in certain cases, use of pelting of stone guns, open fire led human right violation raised by Pakistan against India armed forces. So it was like that many a times Pakistan used to claim that India has done open fire on the mobs and all. So it was also creating a bad image in the international forum. So sometimes such steps were necessary to control of the violence of the state. So sometimes security officials were forced to shoot people and all. It was because to just control the violence in that state. Sometimes they used to take such actions, but such steps sometimes lead to the casualties to the women and children, and this would further create a deep sense of alienation for the people of the Jammu and Kashmir. Still, like, they already had alienated, they are fighting for the for their own identity, and after that, due to this killing and all, this created deep alienation in the mind of the people of the Jammu and Kashmir. So the major terror attack happened in the 2016 Uri attack that was led by the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Within a few weeks, India responded by carrying out a surgical strike in the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir by para commandos and targeted the terror launch pad. Number of terrorists were neutralized in this attack, but Pakistan government denied that there is no such attack happened. Obviously, they won't accept it. And this surgical attack was the largest cross-border attack by the India-Pakistan, but this is not the first. Mention it. India came into the public forum that we have done a surgical strike, but it was not the first time. It has been said by the various experts that government of India did this, make this in the public forum just to create a positive image within the public. So there were various surgical strikes taken in the past and the covert operations as well. So this was among the few incidents making the operation in the public. So it received some of the criticisms too, as it was a major success for India, and received the criticism that why this surgical strike has been called in the public forum. So on the diplomatic side, India called off a talk with the Pakistan. India is moving to a SAARC minus Pakistan, because we have a SAARC grouping to create a connectivity from the Asian countries, our South Asian countries. It has been seen that we have a very poorest connectivity within the Asia. So that's what and always in this grouping, SAARC grouping, Pakistan is always a hurdle for India. That's why India is requesting for making a group of a SAARC minus Pakistan summit. So ultimately tension started to increase between India and Pakistan, blame the entire rest with the Pakistan. So what happened? Why this SAARC minus Pakistan? When this SAARC meeting happened, let us suppose if SAARC meeting is going to happen in the Pakistan, India will say I will not go. When SAARC meeting is going to happen, SAARC summit is going to happen in India, Pakistan will say I will not go. And India is a major power. India is a major power in that grouping. So thus India is telling that we will exclude Pakistan from this grouping, and people and the various countries will agree on it, that various stakeholders will agree on it, because India is a major power in that. So Pulwama attack, February 2019, where a suicide bomber attack targeted by the CRPF vehicle. This attack resulted in a death of more than 40 Jawans, and it resulted in a national outrage and tremendous pressure on the Indian government also to act on the Pakistan. Why? This was a time of election. So considering the fact that 2019 was an election year, so Indian government was in tremendous pressure to respond on the Pakistan side, and Indian government then ordered the Indian Air Force to carry out air attack on the Balakot, on a major terror camp by the Jaish-e-Mohammed that was located. 6 Mirage 2000 penetrated in the Pakistan airbase and did the airstrike Balakot, and all strike was marked as the first ever. This airstrike was marked as the first violation of Pakistan airspace by the India after 1971. 1971 was a part of one when the East Pakistan got independence and the Bangladesh was formed in the 1971. After that, no airbase violation happened. This was the first time. Okay, so thus airstrike increased the tension between the two nations, and the Pakistan took it as a violation of its sovereignty, and it responded by the airstrike in India by the very next day, and this resulted in increase of tension, and this capture our Indian pilot happened. And at last, due to global tensions, our political strategy, Pakistan had to leave our Indian pilot. Safely lived our Indian pilot. So due to the failure of CRPF in implementation of the standard operations procedure led to failed attack, and this price was paid by the death of some of the innocent civilians, and NH blockade and cross LOC trade was banned after this incident. That was established like in the 2008 established, but after this Balakot strike, all the trade and barriers have been called off from the India. Okay, so now that article 370 was revoked in the year 2019, and this presidential order was signed by the president of India, it is like that we haven't removed article 370 from our constitution, but it is just on a paper. Article 370 was for the for the like for the Jammu and Kashmir. So but invoking this article, the special state of Jammu and Kashmir has been withdrawn, and it has not been scrapped, but it is just, it is like that it is present in the written context as a statute book. So okay, in other words, the move by the government give full applicability of the Indian constitution in the Jammu and Kashmir. Full Indian constitution will be applicable. There will be no separate constitution for Jammu and Kashmir. There will be no separate flag for the Jammu and Kashmir. Only tricolor will be there. And earlier only a set of limited provisions such as foreign relations, communication and defense had jurisdiction over Jammu and Kashmir. Now full constitution rights will be over the Jammu and Kashmir when this article 370 has been revoked. So what is the difference between before and after? If you see, so a special power was exercised with Jammu and Kashmir, no special power. Dual citizenship, like the citizenship of the Jammu and Kashmir was there and another citizenship of India was there. There will be only one citizenship, that will be of India. Separate flag of Jammu and Kashmir, no separate flag. Article 360, that financial emergency not applicable, article 360 will be applicable. No reservation for the minorities such as Hindus and Sikhs. There will be reservation for the Hindus and minorities, that is 16% of the reservation. Indian citizens from other states cannot buy land and the property in Jammu and Kashmir. Now any people throughout the country can buy the land through the region. RTI, right to information, not applicable. Now right to information will be applicable. Duration of the legislative assembly was 6 years. Now it will be of 5 years, at like for the normal state. And it is like the duration for that is it has been converted to the union territory. Okay, if a woman from Jammu and Kashmir married to the other state, she would lose the citizenship of the state. Nothing like that, only one citizenship. Okay, she will have a right on the land as well. Panchayat did not have any rights. Now panchayat will have their own right, as the same right as the other states have. Right to education was not applicable. Now children in the state will benefit from the right to education. They will have a right to education. They will get the education from 1 to 6 years, and there is something from the 6 to 14 years, like that. So all the right to education will be applicable for the Jammu and Kashmir. So I hope you have understand this lecture. This was a very long lecture. So pause. I hope you have paused the video and then again you have watched it. Okay, if you have any doubts, please feel free to ping on my Twitter handle. If you want any on-demand video lecture, please feel free to ping me, and comment section is always open. You can give me feedback and all. Thank you, and sorry, this will be a very long lecture. So many times you will feel that text is being read, but if you read that text is self-explanatory. There was no need to make much more explanation for that particular text. So that's why most of the time you will see that text reading was going on. You will feel that the text was read completely, but there was no need of such explanation for that text. So that's why it was just you felt like that. But I have given I think that I have given a sufficient explanation for all those stuffs. That I have given a sufficient explanation before going through the lectures and all, and even for the particular topic I hope I have given sufficient explanation. But if you have any doubts, please feel free to ping on my Twitter handle, or you can give me you can although communication channel has been open, you can go on my YouTube channel. You can find the link for the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter and other stuff, Instagram as well. Okay, thank you. Please subscribe the channel as well.